Good day, vinyl community. How's it going, everyone? It's, as you know, Seeking a Thread. And I teased doing an artist appreciation. I haven't done one in quite a while, and this is an artist I've been meaning to highlight for some time. Haven't seen many people talk about him. Stunty has a little bit, and he's an artist I think deserves your attention for his perseverance, number one, his longevity, and his diversity. Mike Cooper, an artist still going today. I think he's about 80 years old now, and I have a bunch of records here. I'm just going to show by no means are these all of them, but it's the ones I have, and a good smattering of sort of what he does. There's two very distinct career, distinct sort of aspects to Mike Cooper. English, he was born in Reading, and he came up in the English blues and folk scene in the UK, along with people like Davy Graham, John Martin, John Renbourn, Bert Jansch, and he was very much, apparently, from what my reading, a pretty big artist in that day, in that scene anyway, very much reviving the blues and part of the folk scene in the UK. Skiffle was a big sort of influence with England at that time, and by no means was he an exception to that. So Mike Cooper started out, just playing around local clubs, and I have this early this is a repressing of a very rare 7-inch with Mike Cooper and Derek Hall on the Paradise of Bachelors label. First ever reissue of folk and experimental music icon Mike Cooper's historic earliest recordings. Named for the Shades, the Reading UK Folk Club, where the young Cooper regularly performed, and which housed prodigy Derek Hall, a guitarist who could equally match Davy Graham both in technique and musical ideas. Super rare EP from '65, reissued. And it's just a few songs, but Mike Cooper, this is not essentially where my love for him lies in his folk music of the time. Now, his first album was released on Pi. He had a few records on Pi. And by the way, this is Mike Cooper that we're listening to. I'll tell you about this in a moment. But the Pi label signed him, and I guess they were relatively successful, but he did immediately want to start getting into more progressive and experimental ideas, and so he started recording for the Pi subsidiary Dawn, which you may know released a ton of very rare progressive psych records, Comus amongst one of them. This is an album that was released on Dawn. This is not the original, which is not actually that rare. You can find those. It's called Trout Fishing by Paradise of Bachelors. And he had another double album that I used to have, but decided not to keep it. But this is definitely Mike Cooper in experimental folk mode with some jazz tendencies. A very strong record, Trout Steel it's called. He released a string of these records. In the US, he had Oh Really, his first album, released on Janus. I think that was the only one that came out in the US, which I have seen, and it's okay. I passed on it in Rochester when I saw it, but this is a strong album. There was another record, like I said, Mike Cooper and Machine Gun, I think it is. I sold that. But you would think that this is where Mike Cooper goes and ends, as a folk musician. He's still around today, as I said, and somewhere along the line in the 80s, he started getting into real sort of experimental and adventurous music, particularly island music and Hawaiian, Pacific Island music. He went to visit New Zealand and Australia a lot. And he started trying to make his own version of exotica, and that's what we're listening to from my favorite record of his, Rayon Hula, originally from 2005, I believe it is. It came originally in a triple 10-inch silkscreen. This is one of the many reissues on the Room 40 label, which is Lawrence English's label, a contemporary of his. And I just fell in love with this music upon hearing it the first time. Just beautiful. He calls it ambient electronica and exotica, I think he calls it. And he made a few records that are exactly of this ilk. This is one group. What is it? I'm forgetting it. Kiribati is another one. And there's a third one. I'm forgetting the name of it. I'll insert it here. But he started issuing these records in the late 90s on his own label called Hipshot. And they were all CDRs. Everything on this Hipshot label is CDRs. And I think they're pretty collectible depending. But over the last 20 years since he's been doing this, they've been getting reissued at various places. Some getting pressed to vinyl. And this Rayon Hula album, see if you can find this. It's out of print. I think it goes for a little bit, but it will probably be reissued, or you might be able to get lucky if someone just posts it for a decent amount. So we're listening to pieces from this Rayon Hula, Kokoke Nalu and Pomalu. This talks about on the back here several trips to Australia and Southeast Asia and the Pacific where he started coming up with this music. Yeah, I won't get into entirely the background on this record, but I wanted to sort of highlight a few records of his that I really dig. And not everything has this sort of island feel. Some of it gets more, a little noisy, a little more slightly harsh, a little, a little more overtly experimental. And I guess we'll just, play a few of these. This one's called Raft. Now, this, as I said, this one came out earlier in the early 2000s. Raft, he's issuing records pretty regularly. There's one that just came out that I don't have yet, but this is all different Raft numbers, and it is sort of similar to this, but sort of lives in more of an ambient noise mold. And I'm going to insert some music from this here. Yeah, Raft, another excellent record by Mike Cooper. Recording on his own, very much a DIY musician. A lot of lap steel is a thing he does. He started picking that up early on, and he started bringing that and performing live too, sort of sampling and sort of looping himself in the spirit of Robert Fripp. Raft is a wonderful record, though. This one you can definitely still find. I'll just show you what else I have here. This won't be a very long video, but I'm just so hypnotized by his music. Here's one I remember Stunty showing this one, Tropical Gothic. This is from, I think, 2019 or 18. Tropical Gothic examines Gothic within a specific geographical area, the South, as well as transnational movements of the Gothic. Tropical Gothic includes, but is by no means limited to, a reflection on a region where European colonial powers fought intensively against indigenous populations and against each other for control of land resources. Mike Cooper. This one, is this also on Room 40? No, this is a different label. In any case. Crep. I'm seeing Crep 58. Whatever label that is, but. Here's one I recently acquired coming up. Reluctant Swimmer. This is Reluctant Swimmer with Movies is Magic, a Van Dyke Parks track.
Sometimes I wonder, do they ever think of me? Sometimes Sometimes I think about.
And this one, also on this Crep label. What is this label? Oh, Discrepant. Discrepant, 2017. There's a guy surfing. This one's certainly still living in the islands. I highly recommend you checking out Mike Cooper. These records, you can find them. And another one, this is one I really wanted the most next to rayon hula, Fratello Mare. On Passing Bamboo, A House in Bali, Summer Without Waves, Street Beneath the Beach. This one's on room 40, I think, yeah. Fratello Mare. This is from 2015. This one is also more recent. You know, again, sort of pushing himself to find new textures and new versions of ambient music. Each one sort of lives in its own world of experimentation and sort of tropical vibes and just gorgeous sounds. I think, you know, highly recommended if you guys like adventurous music. And the last one I will play a little bit of right now is Steve Gunn and Mike Cooper, Cantatos de Lisbon. This is one in the Freakways series, the Revenge Internationals series. There's maybe 5 or 6 of these. I know Alex has shown one at one time. Freakways 11, right? This was recorded in Lisbon, 2013. Steve Gunn, who's become sort of a real sort of versatile guitarist. A lot of different projects. His Steve Gunn albums are more sort of like rock driven, but he does records with John Krasinski that are sort of experimental duo, the Black Twig Pickers, various other projects and appearances. But they both met. I believe they were both on tour or whatever the case. Steve Gunn was able to meet Mike Cooper there. And this is Cantatos de Lisbon. Yeah. Tranquil interludes for the two world travelers to create off-guard improvisations in their shared style of deconstructed guitar music. A snapshot of Lisbon, yeah, very much improvised, and you can see here in the inner sleeve Steve Gunn, and there's Mike Cooper playing lap steel and working with his sampler. Yeah, from 2013. And they just talked about listening to lots of local Portuguese music, fado music, which is similar to Greek rembetika. This is a really wonderful album. This one definitely lives more in a tranquil spirit, less sort of out there. So if this is like one that sounds a little more for you, then you check it out. Check out Steve Gunn too. I do enjoy him. Yeah, that's it. I just wanted to highlight Mike Cooper real quick. I mean, he has a long career. So there's so much music I don't have, but I'm primarily interested in picking up a lot of the more recent records he's done over the last 15 years. Because each one is a little different. Some I prefer more than others, obviously. So I would highly encourage you to just dive in and check him out. And the folk music from his early career is good too. But for me, it's all about this sort of world-weary, ambient exotica that he's been making. That's it. Stay tuned for next video for new vinyl records in my life. I have a lot to catch up on. It's a few interesting updates, and I'll drop some fun stuff on you. And part 8 of the Psychedelic 100 after that. So hope you dig Mike Cooper. Let me know what you think if you've listened to him before or what have you. And hope everyone's well. See ya.